So East-West Street took me about 6 years to write. I arrived in Lviv in 2010, not expecting to write a book. And it's the lives of 4 men. You've probably begun to Google it, and you've seen that it's got a huge amount of attention. It's been bought in more than 12 languages. It's coming out in Ukrainian in September, which I'm absolutely delighted about. And in fact, we're going to do the book launch in the middle of September in the Ukraine. It's called East-West Street. This is the US cover, which you can see, and the Canadian cover. And I was delighted to do an event, which I think is on the website of the University of Toronto, actually. You'll be able to find that, the lecture that I gave, in which I used photographs. And this is the European cover. So it's basically the same book. It tells the lives of 4 men, of 2 crimes, and of 1 city. It's centered entirely on Lviv. Lviv is the beating heart of the book. I open the book with a map of Lviv in 1911, as you can see, and the book ends. Oh, it doesn't end. They haven't put it. Well, I end with a map of Lviv I'll show you here. It is. It's in this one, Lviv in 2016, and essentially it tells the lives of 4 men. My grandfather, Leon, who was born there in 1904, Hersch Lauterpacht, who was born in nearby Zhovkva, and who went to the law faculty that I've just talked about, and who invented the concept of genocide, of crimes against humanity, who was a professor by the time of the Second World War at Cambridge University in England, and who lived on Tetrialna Street, whose house I found. The third man is Raphael Lemkin, who studied at the university from 1921 to 1926. And he's even more famous than Lauterpacht. He is the man who invented the word genocide. You can get a sense of their significance. These are the, you can see over here that in their handwriting, genocide and crimes against humanity. And the fourth man is, I'm afraid, a very unsavory character, but it makes the book more exciting. And his name is Hanz Frank, and he was the Governor General of occupied Poland. He was Adolf Hitler's personal lawyer, and he caused mayhem in Lemberg, Lviv, when he arrived in 1942 to kill a very large number of Poles and Jews. And so the book tells the story of those 4 men, the 2 crimes, and at the heart of it is the city of Lviv. And so until I wrote this book, people had not appreciated that Lviv is not only magnificent for coffee and for food and for architecture and for science and culture. Lviv is also the origin, the place where modern international justice system originated, as important, right up there with Nuremberg. And I think that what is beginning to happen, the book came out 6 months ago, and I get a steady stream of emails now, 3 or 4 emails a week, of people sending me accounts of how they've gone to Lviv with the book in hand, retracing the footsteps of these people and finding the spaces. And in fact, in November, from the 10th to the 12th of November, I will take a very large group of people on a walking tour of the streets of Lviv to explain to them where particular things happened. I found that Lauterpacht and Lemkin shared the same teacher of criminal law, a Polish professor called Julius Makarewicz. And I found his classroom. And I found his, the law faculty. So you can find the very room, if you like, in which these words originated. And that makes Lviv a very, very important city. An even more important city than it would be anyway. Well, let me just say I'm very familiar with the issue. I mean, it's a very complex history, and it's a painful history for a lot of people. I mean, I have been fortunate to meet and spend time in Lviv with people who are extremely open-minded. Historians, lawyers, writers, scholars, people who just, they don't have an axe to grind one way or another. If Poles behave badly, they want to say it. If Jews behave badly, they want to say it. If Ukrainians behave badly, they want to say it. That's my position. But it's a minefield. And your facial expression, I'm very, very familiar with. It's not you need also to see something else. You need to see, I made a film, which also won prizes. The film is called My Nazi Legacy. And it's set largely in Lviv. And it tells the story of two men. The son of Hanz Frank, who was the governor of occupied Poland and Adolf Hitler's personal lawyer, and the son of Otto von Wächter, who was the Nazi governor of Lemberg, of Lviv, from 1942 to 1944, and my relationship with him. And we go back to Lviv and we go back to the killing fields. And there is a moment in the film where Horst von Wächter, the son of Governor Wächter, who indicted mass murderer, had founded in the city of Lviv the Waffen SS Galicia division in 1943. You will have come across that division. There are many of your colleagues, contemporaries, friends, I'm sure, who are issued from the loins of members of the Waffen SS Galicia division, which is fine. That's just a fact, and that's just how it is. And one day, Horst von Wächter said, "You know what? Let's go. There's going to be a celebration of my father's division." And I said, "What?" And he said, yeah, they love my father, and some people love my father in Lviv. And so we went off in July 2014 to the 71st celebration of the creation of the Waffen SS Galicia division. And I find myself, I'm Jewish, standing in a field with a lot of people in SS uniforms. Now, I'm a pretty robust person. I'm a litigator. I do mass murder cases, so not much is going to faze me. And, we had a good day there, but I have to say it was an eye-opener. I wouldn't say it was a huge crowd. There were a few hundred people there. There was at least one political party represented, Svoboda, the Freedom Party. And they all thought the Nazis were terrific, and they all thought that Governor Wächter was terrific. And frankly, there are people like that in the Ukraine, and there are people like that in Poland, there are people like that in Germany, there are people like that in Britain, and there are people like that in Canada, I'm sure. And we know now there are people like that in the United States. So, that is not the dominant population that I came across. My Ukrainian friend, Sophia, who interpreted that whole visit, was probably even more shocked than I was. And I'm very careful not to draw general conclusions. Each individual is responsible for what she or he does, takes his or her own views on these things, and I avoid labeling countries, cities, groups, communities as having this view or that view. It's a very dangerous thing to do, and we know that amongst our own communities there are a range of different views expressed. I know it's a minefield, and I try to tread very, very carefully on that minefield and be as respectful as I can. It's a very good question. It's a complex question. I think it's difficult. I mean, when I go to Lviv, I'm struck by the absence of memorialization of what happened. Yeah, in Lviv, there's virtually nothing. You come across the odd sign somewhere, there was a concentration camp here, or there was a Jewish cemetery there, but you've got to really look for it. You've got to really know where to go. I found those places. The mayor is really engaging with that. There is, as you know, a complex site of a place called the Rose Synagogue in Lviv, which has now become a place of memory. And I think that reflects a very significant change that is taking place, a willingness to engage. I think these things happen more easily now because a lot of the people who were involved in acts that they should not have been involved in have lived until very recently. And it's very difficult to engage in those kinds of issues whilst people are still around. I think Germany is unique in engaging with those issues. Austria has not engaged. There's not, frankly, much of a difference. If you would ask me the same question about Austria, I would say no. So I'm very careful not to create a sort of league table of who's dealt with it properly, who hasn't dealt with it properly. But in Ukraine, there's plainly a problem. On the other hand, I've been welcomed with open arms. I've spent time with the mayor. He knows exactly what I'm interested in, what research that I'm doing, what I'm looking at. No obstacles have been put in my way. I've been able to write. My book is being bought for translation into Ukrainian, which I'm delighted about. But I did notice, for example, that the film, which you'll now, I'm sure, watch, it's available on Netflix and Amazon and all these things, My Nazi Legacy, was shown all over the world at basically every major film festival in the world. One of the few that declined to show it was Docudays, the Kyiv film festival for documentaries, which is incredible. And I have to suppose that the reason that it was not shown, given that it was all about what was going on in Lviv, was the scenes that showed the Waffen SS commemoration meeting, which you will find painful. They make for very painful watching. I'm very, very careful to say in the film and in all my writings that does not represent a majority or even a significant minority Ukrainian view. But the fact is, it happens, and people are made very uncomfortable with that. So your question is a pertinent one. Let's just say there's some way to go in terms of being able to address this issue. But I think it's changing, and I think there is now a willingness to explore. My own position, as I said right at the beginning, with respect and with courtesy, is just to call a spade a spade. And if, Jews have been engaged in horror, that needs to be said. If Poles have been engaged in horror, that needs to be said. If Brits have been engaged in horror, that needs to be said. My own country, the UK, does not have a tremendous record when it comes to treating people in the colonies around the world. And the same goes for Ukrainians. So I'm not much interested in people who say, we don't want to open that door, we don't want to talk about it, it's all too painful, difficult. No, I think it's much better to engage and to be honest. But I've found that very largely with the people that I'm dealing with in the Ukraine and in Lviv.